Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Essays and Interviews. My name is Jim Stevens, and I'm the Senior Assistant Dean at the UC Davis Graduate School of Management. I have over 3 decades of experience in higher education, almost all of it in top business schools. Previously, I worked at the University of Michigan Ross School of Business, where I earned my MBA. I also worked at the New York University Stern School of Business, where I served as chair of the admissions committee for both the full-time and the part-time MBA programs. And before coming to UC Davis, I was the director of admissions at the Yale School of Management. I've been at UC Davis for about 15 years now and have a few years of experience working in the private sector at the consulting firm KPMG. Over the course of my career in working at business schools, I have reviewed over 25,000 applications and conducted over 3,000 interviews with candidates for business school. So I've talked to a lot of people, I've read a lot of applications, and my goal today is to share some of that with you as you think about preparing your own applications for business school. So today's program is on essays and interviews, but I also wanted to make you aware of some other prior webinars that are available on our website. There's one on having your employer help you fund your MBA. We also have a webinar specifically on tests and transcripts. So as you think about preparing for the GMAT, GRE, or TOEFL, as well as things to think about when putting your transcripts together. And then we also have something on resumes and recommendations. How do you present yourself in the best professional light? For more information on that, just visit our website at gsm.ucdavis.edu/calendar, and you can navigate to those specific webinars. Okay, as you think about your business school application, first question, of course, is what you need to apply. And the information that we ask for at UC Davis is very similar to what other schools will ask you for. So a resume, recommendations, in particular, we ask for 2 professional recommendations. We have 2 essays, one professional and one personal, that we ask you to provide. Obviously, transcripts of all your prior academic work, as well as GMAT and GRE results. And if you're a non-native English speaker, we ask for a TOEFL or IELTS score for you. The application fee is $125, and of course, there is the application form that everybody fills out. Today, we're going to focus on 2 particular parts of that application. We're going to talk about the essays, both the professional essay and what we're looking for, and the personal essay and how you can stand out using that as a way to do so. We're also going to spend some time talking about the interview and what you can do to prepare and be as effective as you can be in representing yourself to the admissions committee. Taking a step back, when the admissions committee is looking at your application for admission, we do what's called a holistic review. And what does that actually mean? It means we look at everything. There's no formula, there's no one item that gets you in or keeps you out, but we really are looking at it through 3 different lenses. We're looking at your academic aptitude, we're looking at your professional promise, and we're looking at your personal qualities. On the academic aptitude, it's very straightforward. We're looking at your prior academic work and how you performed on standardized tests. It gives us a good benchmark for what to expect from you as an MBA student in our program. We also are looking at your professional promise, and that includes not only your prior experience, which is of course important, but we're also looking at the goals you've set for yourself and the likelihood of you achieving those goals and how we can help you get there. And the last thing that we look at, and not necessarily in order of importance, is personal qualities. And every business school out there does this. We are looking to put together a class of individuals who best reflect what we are as an institution and who we think will thrive in our environment. So what we're looking for in these experiences in this area is a little bit different depending on the school. At UC Davis in particular, we're known for having a collaborative community. So we are looking for people who are by nature collaborative. That means they have strong interpersonal skills, they communicate well, they think strategically, but they also have a commitment to others. And having been at other business schools, I can say that this is a fairly unique set of qualities that a school is looking for. And it goes beyond being able to simply work in teams, but really looking for people who value helping others out and understand the overall benefit to an organization and to themselves in working well with others. So when we do this evaluation, we read through it like a book. We go through and we look at all the different parts before reaching a decision, and it comes together in making a final decision with the rest of members of the admissions committee looking at these different aspects. Now let's dive into the topics of today. So we'll start with the essays, and you should think of the essay as a chance to tell your story. Your test scores and academic record are set. Someone else is writing your recommendations, your work history, and how you present it. There's a little bit of room for creativity there, but really when you think about the essays, it's your opportunity to make your case to the admissions committee. Tell them why you are interested in an MBA, what you plan to do with it, and why their program is the best fit for you. So think of it as serving as your cover letter. And if you think about your application to business school as being similar to an application for a job, the job being MBA student at that particular school, the essay does serve as your cover letter. So it's a chance for you to highlight things that are important to you that will resonate with the admissions committee. Some of these things are pretty obvious, so you want to make sure there are no typos, no misspellings, no errors. You want to make sure they're as clean as possible, have other people read them, and make sure that it's your work, but it's certainly okay to ask other people to proof them for you. Make sure that they answer the question that's being asked. And a technique that I've suggested to candidates over the years is give someone your final essay answer and then have them read it, and then have them tell you what is the question that you are answering. That's a good way to make sure that you're answering the question that the admissions committee has asked. We put a lot of time and effort into putting these questions together to help us make the best possible decision. And we want to make sure that we're getting that information from you when we read that. And the last thing is make sure they convey who you are. There's no one particular candidate. There's no crafting that you can put together that will make the committee think this is exactly the person that we want. The person that we want is the person that you are. So we want you to be honest, be open, and be as transparent as possible so that when you present your essay to us, you're really presenting the best of who you are. Now, looking at the actual essays themselves, as I mentioned before, we have two required essays. One is about your career goals and your plans for achieving them. And then the second is something that's interesting about you. We also have an optional essay, which is an opportunity for you to provide some additional context. It could be an explanation for parts of your application that aren't as strong as you would like them to be, or it could be additional information about your background that might be helpful to the admissions committee. When we look at the career goals and plans, the obvious question is, what's your career goal and why have you chosen it? What is it about your background and experience that has drawn you to this particular career path? And what are the steps beyond the MBA that you're going to need to take to reach that goal? It may mean looking for a particular internship experience that will round out the experience you already bring. It may be leveraging experience that you already have, meaning it may be an opportunity for you to take something that you're doing currently and just do it at a much higher level with the skills and knowledge that you'll gain from an MBA. And really, how does this all come together? How do you make this plan work so that as you complete your MBA, you're prepared to take this next step in your career journey? And then the other thing overall that you should be thinking about is what's going to be your overall impact in this area. We're looking for people that are really going to make a difference in the organizations and communities that they're a part of. And as you give thought to your own personal career goals and your path for achieving them, think more broadly about what your impact will be on the organizations and the communities that you'll be a part of. When we're putting together the class, we are looking for individuals. And for me, one of the most exciting things about our class each year is it really is an amazingly diverse group of people that come together. And I think that diversity of perspectives, diversity of backgrounds is really what makes for a strong MBA experience overall. So when we think about putting a class together, we're looking for people who are going to bring some extra dimension from themselves and be able to share it with their classmates. So as you think about all of your experiences outside of work, maybe clubs you've belonged to, sports you've been engaged in, activities you've undertaken, personal challenges that you've overcome, any number of different things about your background. What's one thing that you want the admissions committee and your classmate to know about you to help understand who you are and what kind of a member of the community you're going to be? So we appreciate people being honest. We appreciate people putting themselves out there. And the goal is really to get to know you as an individual, going beyond the work experience and the professional expertise that you bring, and really thinking about who you are as a person and being a part of our community. Okay. The last essay that we look at is the optional essay, and not everyone provides one. It's not required, hence the term optional, but it really is an opportunity for you to share relevant information that hasn't been covered someplace else in your application. Typically what students will do or applicants will do is use that as an opportunity to address concerns that might show up in their record. So it could be a weak academic record and there was some outside factor that affected their performance, maybe an illness, maybe they had to work full time to pay for school, any number of things like that that give us some additional context for their performance overall. Things like test scores are important, but they're not the one and only thing that we look at. So there may be some additional information about your test taking that would be helpful for the admissions committee to know. Breaks in employment can be helpful to, it can be helpful for us to understand breaks in your employment. 10 or 15 years ago, if you were not working for more than a couple of months, it typically raised some questions with admissions committees. I can tell you that that perspective has changed. And when we're looking at individuals and looking at their work history, a gap in employment is not something that is the kiss of death that it used to be, but we are looking for some understanding about what was happening during that time. We see cases where people have stopped working to care for a family member. We've also seen cases where people have had personal reasons that they needed to step away from the workforce for a while. And there are also the cases where, given where the economy was just 10 years ago, it took longer to find a new position than they expected. All we're really looking to understand is, how did you approach that? What was the reason for that? And there are a lot of really good reasons why people step away from the workforce for a while. And then how did you grow from that period? Did you spend some time maybe taking classes? Did you keep involved in the profession by being involved in organizations and associations? Just want to have some context and understanding what was going on. And then the last thing that can be helpful is there may be information about your background, particularly if you've overcome some kind of an obstacle or hardship that helped you become who you are as a professional today. That's the kind of information that's very helpful for the admissions committee. And frankly, just not every candidate is going to have that to share. But if you have a true hardship or a true challenge that you had to overcome, we would very much love to hear about that and understand how that has helped make you into the person that you are today. So when you think about the optional essay and you think about the other essays overall, again, this is telling your story. It's an opportunity for you to share with the admissions committee who you are both as a professional and as a person. So use that opportunity to present yourself in the best possible light. The next thing we're going to talk about today is the interview. And I know a lot of people become nervous when they think about the interview. They feel like they're on the spot. I think for some people, the only thing that's more frightening is public speaking. And I'm here to say that this is all good because when we are interviewing candidates for the program, the reason we are interviewing them is to get to know you better and add some context and personal color to your candidacy for our program. So when we are inviting someone in for an interview, we want to get to know who you are better. We want to delve a little bit deeper into some parts of your application, maybe understand a little more fully what you've shared with us in your written application, and just quite honestly understand or assess your communication skills. As an MBA student and as a business professional, you will need to be able to communicate effectively, and it's a great opportunity for us to have that conversation with you. When we think about who gets invited, particularly for the UC Davis MBA program, these are people who we are interested in getting to know better because we're interested in them as candidates for our program. So getting invited for an interview should always be viewed as a good thing. It's an opportunity for you to get to know the admissions committee a bit better. It's an opportunity for them to get to know you better and understand your candidacy better. It's really a chance for you to shine. The format for the interview will vary depending on the program and the school, but for UC Davis, we greatly prefer that the interviews take place face-to-face. We find those to be the most helpful, but we also understand that for some candidates, it's not feasible. We have a number of candidates who apply from around the world, and coming into Davis for a single day may not be feasible, and in some cases, for visa reasons, may not even be possible. So we typically will do what are called Zoom interviews. They're online interviews, they're live, they're interactive. As I said before, we want to have a conversation with you. And then if an online interview is not possible, we certainly can arrange for a telephone interview as well. So the idea really is it's typically about half an hour. We have some questions we want to ask you about. We want to have a conversation with you. And from that conversation, have a better understanding of where you are. I mentioned before that we prefer for people to come to campus because we actually are very proud of our campus and want to show it off to you, but we also understand that that's not possible, so the interview may take place either on our campus in Davis, it could also take place on our campus in Sacramento, as well as our campus in the Bay Area in San Ramon. And for us, it's an opportunity to get to know you. If that's not possible, if it's not possible for you to come and visit us, we absolutely can interview with you wherever you might be in the world. Okay. When you think about the interview, I mentioned before, think about your business school application as if you were applying for the position of MBA student. And so based on that, treat that MBA admissions interview just like a job interview. So some general guidelines, some of this will be very obvious. You'll say, well, of course I would do that. Each of the points that are in here are points that some candidates in the past have missed the mark on. So dress and act professionally. What does that mean? I think this is where being in California sometimes is a disadvantage because of some business norms that are out there. We expect students to show up in business attire. So for men, that would be suit and tie. For women, it would be a business suit of sometimes something with a jacket. We are looking for you to present yourself professionally. The casual conversations that you might have with your friends and even your colleagues at work is probably not professional enough for the impression you want to make during your admissions interview. The second point I want to make is be familiar with your resume and application. Sometimes it may have been a month or more since you submitted your application and last read your essay, and you're actually coming in for the interview. There's a really strong chance that your interviewer anywhere, and definitely your interview at Davis, will have read your application right before meeting with you. So you want to make sure that you are more familiar with your application and background than your interviewer is. And then start thinking now about how to convey that this place is right for you. Meaning, what is it about this particular program that appeals to you, that will make it a good experience for you and will help you get to where you want to go professionally, but also think about what it is about your background that resonates and will resonate with the community at UC Davis and how that will come across in the course of the interview. And then obviously knowing the logistics, and we'll talk in a minute about that, things that you can do to make sure that you show up on time in the right place and ready to go. So as you think about preparing for your interview, the one piece of advice I offer is practice, practice, practice. It's kind of like a variation on real estate. You know, the most important thing is location, location, location. You want to make sure that you are comfortable answering the questions. So if you have a friend or colleague who is also applying to business school, I would recommend the two of you pair up and take turns asking each other questions and critiquing each other's questions. Be brutally frank with each other, because I promise you the admissions committee will as well in assessing your candidacy. So getting comfortable answering questions about yourself, particularly the difficult ones, will make you a more effective candidate in your interview. When you're getting ready for the interview, you've done this already in preparing your application, but make sure you've researched the school and the program. And if at all possible, talk to students and alumni. There are MBA fairs around the world. There are opportunities when schools host events. Certainly, you can do research on the website, and there's a lot of good information out there. Many schools have video information that's available, but if you're able to have a face-to-face conversation with a current student or alumnus, many schools have ambassador programs with students or alumni, and it's just an opportunity for you to talk to them about what their experience was like and help you understand what the experience might be like for you. As you prepare, you want to make sure that you are making your case as strongly as possible. So I encourage candidates to pick 5 points about your candidacy to highlight. Most of these are going to be about your professional background, the experience and expertise that you're bringing to the table, but just as with your essays, we also want to get to know who you are as a person. So what are the things in your life that you're most passionate about? Is there a cause that you're dedicated to? Are you an elite athlete who has spent a lot of time and energy developing your skills in that area? Are there other things about you that really resonate, who you are. Be ready to talk about that. So pick 5 points that you want to highlight throughout your candidacy. And then have specific, concise stories to highlight each point. So for example, if you are particularly committed to a social cause, you should probably have at least 2 or 3 different examples of how you've contributed to furthering that cause, either in a volunteer capacity, perhaps running an organization, running an event, something like that, and think about how that relates back to your overall candidacy for the MBA program and how that highlights your future effectiveness as a leader. And then the important thing with this is you want to make sure that you have multiple stories for each point that are different. I think people sometimes underestimate the value of their own experiences and go to that one story that really highlights a lot of great things about themselves, but you will make a much stronger case for yourself if you share that one story, plus a number of other stories that highlight important points about you as well. So you want to make sure you have a range of stories and a range of examples to share with your admissions committee interviewer. And then the final question to be ready for is, why do you want this program? What is it again about this program that resonates with you? What is it that you hope to get out of it? And what is it that you expect to be able to bring to the program? And again, being able to be specific and concise about what this actually is, why you want the program, and to the extent that you're able to have conversations with alumni and students before you come into the interview will make you that much more effective. Okay, so you've done your preparation, you've given this a lot of thought, you've reviewed your application. The day of the interview, what do you do to make sure that you make the best possible impression? So, arrive early, know where to park and where to go. Ideally, if you are able to do this, come the day before, see where you need to park, figure out exactly how long it's going to take you to get there. Leave enough time, especially in Northern California. Traffic can sometimes pop up where you least expect it, and what you don't want to do is be rushing into your interview sweaty and out of breath because you've had to run from the parking lot to get to the admissions interview. If you do find yourself stuck in traffic, call the business school, call the front desk, and let them know that you're on your way. With the traffic apps that are available today, you should be able to tell us pretty accurately when you're going to get there. But if at all possible, arrive early, know where to park and know where to go, so you've got at least a few minutes to collect yourself before your interviewer comes to get you. When you're actually in the interview, you want to be confident in describing your accomplishments. You want to be, again, you've done the preparation, you've got specific examples that you want to share. Make sure that you are confident, but not boastful, not arrogant in talking about your accomplishments. An important point I like to make right now when I'm talking to candidates about this aspect of it is make sure that you're able to distinguish what work you provided. In other words, what was your direct contribution to the success of a project versus what was the overall team project. And when I'm interviewing candidates, if someone talks about a team effort, I'm always going to follow up and ask them, what was your specific contribution? Be ready to talk about that. And I do give bonus points in my head if a candidate makes their own contribution clear without me having to ask that question. So be clear about what it is that you're bringing to the table, what was your specific contribution to the team's success, and then also, of course, being happy to talk about the overall success of the team. Just like with your essays, make sure you are answering the question that's being asked. So listen to the question, take a moment to take it in and make sure that you are answering the question that they have asked you. You've prepared examples, you've prepared points that you want to make. You want to make sure that the point you're making ties back to the question that's being asked. And keep your answer brief. If you talk for more than 2 minutes, you've probably gone on too long. I can tell you stories where in a 30-minute interview, I was able to ask 2 questions because when I asked my first question, the candidate answered that question for 20 minutes without giving me an opportunity to ask any follow-up. So think of this as a conversation. So you want there to be give and take. And again, listen to the question and make sure that's being asked. And then the last thing is, just like a job interview, you want to make sure you have a couple of good questions ready. And what does that mean? So you've done your research, you have researched the web, you've read the materials, You've maybe read third-party reviews on different websites that are out there. Hopefully you've had a chance to talk to alumni and current students. So as you think about why you want to be at that school, it's an opportunity for you to have a deeper understanding of what that experience would look like for you. So you could ask a question that says, so does your school do anything with food and agriculture? Which UC Davis does. We have an amazing industry immersion program that focuses on the food and ag industry. A much better question would be, I see that UC Davis has a food and ag industry immersion program. What are you guys planning to do next year? Is there anything that I could do now that would get me ready to make sure I'm getting the most out of it? So it shows that you're really thinking about what the experience would be like, you're thinking ahead, and you're thinking beyond, tell me about your school. And it tells us that you've thought about the school and you really want to understand what that experience would be like for you. So we've talked about a lot of different things. One point I want to make about the interview is make sure you send a thank you note. I will say that unfortunately this is happening less and less, but a thank you note is more than just an opportunity to express your gratitude. It's also an opportunity for you to reemphasize points with your interviewer. Maybe there was a question that you answered in the interview, and 30 minutes after you walked out the door, you said, oh, geez, I should have answered the question this way. A thank you note is a good opportunity to either re-answer that question and say, I thought more about the question that you asked, and I wanted to add this to share this with you. That's a great thank you note. Or it may just be an opportunity to reflect on something that you talked about and re-emphasize an answer that you already gave. But it's a way for you to reconnect on a more personal level with the admissions committee member who interviewed you, and it's an opportunity for you to take one last opportunity to make your case before your application goes before the admissions committee. So that concludes the webinar for today. We've covered all the basics about essays and interviews. Christopher, do we have any questions today?
Thank you, Jim. Yes, we do. Let's start off with a few questions regarding the essay.
Okay.
So what if I'm not sure what I will do after the MBA? How do I write my goal essay then?
So my answer to students who ask that question is always, if you don't know what you want to do after business school, how do you know if you need an MBA to do that? So there's a couple things I would suggest. One, there is a tool called MBA Career Leader. It's available through the website gmac.com, and it takes about 90 minutes. There are 3 30-minute sections, and based on how you answer those questions on your skills, interests, and values, it will give you some guidance about potential career paths you should be looking at, and also potential career paths you might want to avoid that may not be such a good fit for you. So that would be the first thing. I would say get some greater clarity on what it is you want to do after business school, and then really talk to people who are doing those kinds of jobs. It could be fellow alumni from your undergraduate program. It may be current coworkers, particularly if it's in a similar industry to the one that you're in, but talk to people who are doing the jobs that you're thinking about doing, and then use that information as part of your essay that you're crafting for business school. One of the things I also tell our students when they first get here is that you can do anything you want with an MBA except practice law and practice medicine. However, when you come to business school, we are going to throw a lot of different things at you, and it is much easier to change your mind based on having gone through the process of making some decisions about what is the career path that you want, what is it about the career path that appeals to you, in other words, why do you want to do this kind of work, and then as new opportunities present themselves, and I promise you new opportunities will, it's a chance for you to reevaluate some of your career goals so that you can change your mind. That's great, but to try and make up your mind with all the things that'll be going on when you're in business school will be really challenging, and students that have come in like that in the past are the ones who have typically struggled the most with their careers. So we want to make sure that when students are coming into the program, they've done that homework, they've done that thinking about what it is that they want to do professionally, and know that the MBA, and in particular the UC Davis MBA, is the right place for them.
Thank you. How do I address the fact that my partner and I are applying to the same program?
I don't know that I would necessarily say that you need to address it. I would say I wouldn't put it in your application, but you might want to mention it in passing in your potentially in your interview and in conversations that you've had. Each decision will be independent, and each candidate would be evaluated on the merits of his or her own application. And based on that, making sure you each put together the strongest possible application is probably my best advice.
Perfect. And if I don't have a low GPA and no breaks in employment, is the optional essay really optional?
Absolutely, absolutely. I would say I would rather see no essay than a random third essay. And we do see students who have very clearly taken an essay that they've written for another application and just inserted it in their application because there was an optional essay space. That adds no value to your application, and in some ways goes back to the point of answering the question that's asked. And if there's not additional relevant information that we need to know, you're not following instructions well by including that information. So absolutely no optional essay is required.
Perfect. Moving over to some questions we got regarding the interview. So you mentioned a little bit, but can you expand more on who gets invited to an interview?
Absolutely. So when we're evaluating candidates for admission, we're looking at the paper application. So we're looking at things like transcripts and test scores. We're looking at resumes and recommendations and your essays, and we're really trying to get a picture of who you are as a candidate. Based on that initial review, we are seeing enough promise in your application to want to get to know you better. So typically students whose test scores and GPA and academic record and professional experience and professional goals line up with a successful MBA candidate at UC Davis, those are the individuals that would be invited in for an interview. I have worked at schools in the past where they will only invite in candidates who are what we call on the bubble, where there's some promise there, but there's some concern that they want to talk to the candidate about specifically. But generally speaking, most schools, if you're being considered for admission to a top MBA program nowadays, you're being invited in for the interview because we want to meet with and talk with everyone who we're considering for admission.
That means that everyone that gets enrolled into the program have to have an interview before they.
Yes, that's a good question. So everybody who is admitted into the MBA program has been interviewed, but not everybody who is interviewed gets offered admission into the MBA program.
Perfect, thank you. How much weight do you put on the interview versus the rest of the application?
We don't have a precise formula. I mentioned that earlier. We don't use a formula. What we're really looking for is it touches on different things. We've gotten third-party evaluation of your communication skills. You've told us about your professional goals. We've gotten an understanding of why you're interested in our program. With the interview, what we're looking for is really a confirmation of your communication skills. How effectively do you convey information about yourself, about your background, about your experiences, about your goals? And that is on top of the information in the application itself, in the written application.
Thank you. And who will the interview be with? Is it one or several people?
Typically, it's with one person. It's a member of the admissions committee, usually one of the directors, one of the associate directors, or the director of admissions. We don't actually have students and alumni do interviews for us. It's a choice we've made as a school. But with the interview itself, you may occasionally have a second person join you. That's typically when someone is still in the learner phase. So you may have someone who is observing an interview for the first time, or second or third time, and they're learning how to do the interviews as we do them here. You may also have a situation where someone is coming to the end of their training and they're doing their own interviews for the first time, in which case there's another person in the room who is observing them and making sure that they're ready to go. But most typically it's going to be one person in the room with you.
Perfect. What is the timeline for the application before and after the interview?
It depends. So when an application comes in, we are committed to getting a decision to you as quickly as possible. So we do a very quick screen, meaning we very quickly review the applications and they're complete, make an initial decision on whether to invite that person in for an interview or not. And then it is possible a person could be invited later if they're not initially invited, but typically most invitations to interview come in within the first week or two of the application coming in.
Perfect. And so that was all regarding the interview. You mentioned a thank you note towards the end. In this day and age, does it really need to be a letter?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I am interviewing candidates for a job, I get a thank you letter about half the time, and it really does make a difference. It tells me that that person is willing to go above and beyond what has become the norm of not sending thank you notes, and that makes that person stand out, particularly a hand-delivered thank you note. I would say all depends on the circumstances. If you are interviewing remotely, in other words, if you didn't come to campus, I would recommend sending an email as a thank you. It's going to be the fastest and easiest way for you to get there. Again, making sure that you're taking that opportunity either to reframe an answer that you've given or to emphasize an answer that you gave previously. If you're local, if you're in town, or if you're going to be in town the next day, I was particularly impressed by one candidate who interviewed with me in the morning and then later that afternoon dropped off a thank you note, a handwritten thank you note at the front desk. So I had it that same day. It was before I'd written up the interview report, and I was able to factor in some of the information that she shared. But really looking at the reality of it, most people send emails for thank you notes. Handwritten notes are nice, but not necessary.
Thank you, Jim. That was all the questions we had.
Great. Thank you, guys. Good luck on your applications. I hope you guys have enjoyed hearing more about how to put together strong essays and really prepare for your interviews. I would like to take a moment to introduce you to the members of our admissions team. Jessica Moon is our Associate Director for our full-time MBA program. Christopher Weilberg is the Associate Director of Admissions for our Sacramento MBA program, and Lauren Anderson is the Associate Director of Admissions for our Bay Area MBA program. If you have any questions at all about the admissions process, how to apply, how the programs work, details about the program, what you can expect while you're in the program and afterwards, Jessica, Christopher, and Lauren can answer any of those questions, and we've included their contact information up here. Please feel free to reach out to any of them for your program. Wanted to take a quick minute to share with you some next steps. So hopefully this has answered some of your key questions about the admissions application process. You have an opportunity now to learn more about our program and to see how this might fit well with your career plans. But a couple of things. One, I would encourage everybody to start an application. It's a great way to get into the system, if you will, and really start to receive some good communications about what's going on at UC Davis, particularly in the MBA program. The 3 associate directors that I mentioned in the last slide are available for consultations. Putting together an application, particularly for a school like UC Davis, is a very personal experience, and they are happy to walk through that process with you in more detail and on a more personal level than some of the topics that we touched on today. If you really want to get to know the school better, I had mentioned earlier about taking an opportunity to both talk to alumni as well as talk to students. There are 2 ways that you're able to do that. One would be by attending an event. If you go to our calendar, you can see what events are out there, and it's an opportunity for you to learn more about admissions. It's an opportunity to learn more about the program, and I think most importantly, to learn more or to meet some of the people who are in the program. And then I always encourage every student to visit a class for any program that you're considering. It really will give you a strong sense of what will the experience be like for you, who will be teaching you, and who will you be in class with. I've always said that half the value you get from any MBA program that you complete is the network of peers and colleagues that start with the people that you're actually in class with. So who you're in class with matters, and it's a great way to assess what that's like and what the learning experience would be like for you. We have upcoming application deadlines, and if you go to our website, you'll have the most current set of application deadlines available to you. So again, I want to say thank you guys for joining us today. If you have any questions at all, you can either get the answer at our website or get yourself in touch with the person who can provide those answers for you. Thank you.